In from the west tomorrow, combining with the heat and humidity, heavy, thundery showers will develop. That's your forecast.
BBC Radio Wales Breakfast.
It's 28 minutes to 8. Now, the UK government has lost its legal challenge to prevent the COVID inquiry from seeing Boris Johnson's WhatsApp, diaries and notebooks in full. The Cabinet Office had argued it should not have to hand over what it called irrelevant material, but the inquiry chair, Baroness Hallett, said it should be up to her to decide what is relevant. The UK government has accepted the ruling. Well, Georgia Gilholy is a columnist at Conservative Home. Good morning, Georgia.
Good morning.
First question, the government's accepted the ruling. It would seem so, kicking and screaming and I suppose at the very last minute.
Absolutely, but this is really no surprise that they failed in this. I mean, when the inquiry was launched, the Cabinet Office accepted it, and it's no surprise, therefore, that they lost the challenge, basically. And obviously their claim was, we would really like to redact this irrelevant information, but to kind of the average observer of this, it looks as if they have something to hide. And I don't think any members of the public at this point, with the scandals we've witnessed, especially over the past few years, would be surprised if they do. They know that the inquiry now having the power to, request WhatsApps and those kinds of documents unredacted sets a precedent, not, of course, just for Boris Johnson, who has already handed them over, but for, other ministers, civil servants. I think they may be, some of them, worrying about not just their own professional records, but maybe their personal lives.
So if these have been handed over by Boris Johnson, or he's prepared to hand them over, what do you think is the detail in them that the government, that Rishi Sunak's department, might not want to be made public?
It's hard to know when it comes to the specifics, and actually we may, as members of the public, never see some of these. They may never come to the light of day. It's up to the discretion of the inquiry to decide what they release to the public. I think some of the elements of Boris Johnson's WhatsApps could be, unsavoury reading for the public and himself. However, if you look at it from Boris Johnson's perspective, he's already really at the moment lost his political career. Obviously, we never know if he'll try and make a comeback. He's lost his political career. So one could say that depending on the content of those messages, he had nothing left to lose by handing them over.
But
we also have to think about...
Might they embarrass Rishi Sunak, do you think?
They may well. And I think that no one would be particularly surprised by that, given that he has essentially frittered away a wad of taxpayers' money on this legal challenge, which, several weeks ago people were saying they're never going to win this. So even if the messages themselves or the content of the diaries, etc., themselves weren't embarrassing to him, I think this whole episode is embarrassing to him, that he chose to push this.
And where does this leave the government? I mean, Rishi Sunak just can't get rid of the ghost of Boris Johnson, even though, as you hint, his political career may well be over. His influence, certainly on the last government, does appear still to linger and create problems for the present government, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's today is 12 months since Boris Johnson gave that dramatic leaving speech outside Number 10, and as you're suggesting, I mean, his ghost sort of looms. And I think, we don't know exactly what he knows, and we don't know what those messages contain. I think we could see them released by the inquiry in the coming weeks and months. We could see them leaked to the press. I mean, there's lots of precedent for leaking to the press with those kinds of things, depending on how interesting they are or they seem. I think we really don't know how this will end, and I think that a COVID inquiry is going to prove quite painful, obviously, for those families and people who've been, the whole country was impacted so profoundly by the pandemic and by those restrictions that the government, obviously many members of the government, broke themselves.
Indeed.
And I think it's going to be negative headline after negative headline, and none of this is going to be nice reading for Rishi Sunak.
No, indeed. That's Georgia Gilholy, columnist at Conservative Home. Thanks for joining us on